大家好，请你们写上你们来自哪里。如果你们是家长还是学生、高学生或者是大学生。我叫 Elise，我在旧金山湾区。我自己是大学生，大学1年级。
Elise, do you want to talk a little bit more about your major?
Sure. I am currently an environmental science major. I am planning to double major in business. I think it's important. The reason why I chose my major is it's important to think about what's going to happen in these coming years. We all know, you know, and the environment is very important. We're all on this earth, and we need to understand what is happening in the day to day, especially as businesses are very prevalent in the impact on our environment. So that's sort of why I chose my major. Do you want to talk a little bit about yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So I majored in computer science at Cal, otherwise known as UC Berkeley. Um, well, to be fully honest, the reason why I majored in it was largely due to parental influence. Both my parents are software engineers. They've been working in major Silicon Valley companies for over 25 years now. And their influence definitely pushed me to study that major. Truthfully speaking, I wanted to be a history major at first. But now, kind of looking back at my experience, technology is another one of those factors that's really driving our world, that's, advancing human civilization. So I think it was really good to study and learn some of the fundamentals of that revolution.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point. I mean, if you look at especially where we are, right, in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, there's a very heavy focus on computer science and STEM and how that's going to affect our future. We're always on the verge of what's going to happen next. So I think going into computer science is a great idea, especially going into college. But at the same time, yeah, you need to consider what your other interests are and how they impact your future. Let's see. Let's keep this chat going. In the chat, please say, if you're a parent, student, high school student, college student. Also, please tell us, where you're coming from and maybe what you do for a living or what you did today. Again, I want to give a warm thank you to AFI, MyT Coach, and Dragon Eagle for jointly sponsoring this seminar. And welcome everyone. So let's talk a little bit more about your interest in history that you just mentioned. Can you elaborate on this interest?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, a little bit of context about my interest in history. So, I did mention that I wanted to be a history major, and part of that interest really came from the competitions that I participated in high school. There are a lot of academic competitions for history, just like there are for STEM subjects like math and science. And I ended up winning 5 national titles in those history competitions when I was in high school. Now, where did that interest come from? Well, I've always thought that history was a really interesting subject because to me, it's like a mirror looking back on everything that humanity has done in the last 5,000 or 6,000 years. It's like collective human memory. So I think it's important because without knowing history, it's as if you woke up tomorrow and you didn't have any recollection of who you were, who your family members were, all of those things that really make us who we are. But history is that for humanity as a collective. So that's why I think it's important, and that's at the core of why I like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I think in general, history is just a brushed over subject. I remember in high school, we were talking about this before, but the teachers who teach history are always something else. They're never just your history teacher. I remember the history teachers at my school were always also the physical education teachers, the PE teachers, and it's really hard to take history seriously when the teacher teaching you about ancient Egypt is also teaching you how to play dodgeball, right? And this kind of downplay on history really makes people brush over a subject that is more important than people may think.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why it's so true. Like, it seems so universal that PE teachers are also the history teachers.
Exactly. And I just want to touch on your point that if you don't know your history, you don't know who you are. Beyond that, if you don't know history, you may have trouble connecting with a broader band of people, right? Just because we all have our histories, we're all connected on this earth in some sort of way. And oftentimes that is through our common knowledge of history.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So let's move on to talking about, again, your major in computer science and now how you've kind of gravitated away from that. So after graduating with a computer science degree, what are your career plans?
So after I graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in computer science, I spent the first 2 years as an engineer. Now, I wasn't exactly unhappy doing that, but I knew that it wasn't performing to my fullest potential. So after 2 years, after some realizations, I decided to leave my job and pursue a business of my own. Now, this wasn't a very easy decision because as a lot of you know, Silicon Valley engineers have it pretty good. The hours aren't bad and the perks are amazing. The salary is amazing. And, I got avocado toast and, beer on tap in the kitchen and all that. But I decided that ultimately, in order to fulfill my full potential, I feel like I'm a lot more people facing than, say, engineering oriented. I just had to pick up and leave and go into the unknown and see what I can make of myself.
Awesome. I think, being such a young individual and going away from such a cushy job is definitely a very brave decision. I definitely commend that. And I think we can talk a little bit about, well, going into such a cushy job so early makes you think, well, what am I supposed to do now? Right? There's sort of that unspoken sense of purpose that comes with your career. And to just leave that all behind to really find that purpose is very brave. Moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about your biggest inspirations in life. I think looking to what has inspired you the most can also help you understand why you make certain decisions, right? So I'm going to ask you who or what have been your biggest inspirations in life?
That's a funny question, and I hope that you won't judge me too harshly for my answer, because my answer is going to sound a little bit egotistical, but I'm going to explain it. Somebody that really inspires me is myself. And, I know what you're all thinking, like how full of himself can this guy be? But the reason for that is because I feel like I've taken a lot of risks that I myself felt like were almost overwhelming. I feel like I have done things that I myself were really afraid of. And if we're not proud of what we've done ourselves, then, who should we be proud of? I would say before, I made those decisions, a lot of who inspired me would be maybe like historical figures. In particular, let me just throw out a few names like Julius Caesar, and his decision to cross the Rubicon. If for those of you who are not as familiar with history, Julius Caesar decided to cross the Rubicon and irreversibly alter his fate and ultimately create the Roman Empire that we know today through that one decision. So, being able to confront your decisions and being able to, grapple with the full weight of them has been something that I've taken inspiration from many historical figures.
Yeah, I mean, I figured with your interest in history, definitely have some historical figures who inspire you. And again, thinking on that, right? Just looking at historical figures and having them inspire you can also inspire you to do greater things because those are the people you remember and that's the legacy you want to leave behind. So I don't think necessarily having yourself as an inspiration is a bad thing. As you've explained, right? You are the decider of your own fate. You are the one who's living this life. So why not inspire yourself? is very important for people to think about what is inspiring them and how they move forward with their lives.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, I want to call you out, JK, because that Chinese metaphor is exactly what I was looking for when I was talking about Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon.
Exactly. Again, with that was such an inspiring answer. I understand that you're a coach, which is very impressive at such a young age. So let's talk about what kind of coaching are you doing and what topics and age groups do you specialize in?
Yeah, absolutely. For this question, I'm going to focus on one of my businesses, 360 Coaching. I actually have another coaching and consulting business for professionals, but I want to focus this answer on 360 Coaching. So, I participated in this competition when I was in high school, History Bowl, and I ended up winning 5 national titles and 10 international gold medals in this competition. And right after I graduated from high school, immediately I got a lot of interest from people wanting to follow in my footsteps. So I've been running this business for about 8 years now, and it really is mentoring the next generation in order to compete in academic competitions like History Bowl. Definitely the target age group would be high schoolers, since this is mostly a high schooler and middle school competition. But contrary to what people think, it's way more than just teaching them how to learn things, how to memorize things. That's only one component of the holistic coaching process. That would be the knowledge component. The other 2 components would be the competition component and the life and leadership component. And for the competition component, it's things like performing under pressure, learning the intricacies of the game. For anybody who's had to compete in anything, there is some element of game theory to everything, and being able to go out there and just put out your best and to not crack under the pressure is one thing that I teach. And with any sort of competitive team activity, there is a significant amount of grit and leadership involved. So those are all the intangibles that I help teach in the coaching.
Right. I think a lot of people don't really see the importance of putting yourself out there in competitions, really thinking about how am I competing? How am I presenting myself against, not maybe against, but amongst the other people I'm facing. I myself am an avid athlete. I've been in a lot of different sports teams, and I can definitely understand, even though, you may be going through the History Bowl and I'm going through maybe like a tennis tournament, there's a lot of the same dynamics involved, right? It's just making sure you don't crumble under the pressure, keeping up the lead, and overall keep maintaining your confidence. I think confidence is a big factor in that. And coaching the next generation to compete, to be strong with themselves and be persistent is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the students I've coached for 8 years now. So I've seen 2 entire classes of high schoolers go from freshmen to seniors to college. And for the students I've coached, they've want to combine 10 national titles under my tutelage as well. So would say I'm somewhat successful there.
Hey, you recognize that you're really good at it. You're very passionate in history. And I think that plays a big part, right? If you really care about something and you're great at it, then pass it down.
Absolutely.
So let's see here. So as a coach, right, you have to deal with people from all different backgrounds, all different generations. So what do you aim to teach people from different generations about societal improvement and political action?
Sorry, Elise, could you clarify the question? Like,
Yes.
is there a difference between older generations and younger generations that you're really seeking to highlight here?
Yeah, I didn't mean to make it so subtle. I think people from different backgrounds and different generations, of course, there are going to be divisions in how they view societal improvement, political action, and personal development, right? Whether it's, it should be more of a family movement for personal development, or for societal improvement, there may be different perspectives based on who you're around and what you talk about. There's always going to be a divide in how people think. So for my question for you is, how do you aim to teach these people with different backgrounds and different environments about societal improvement?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one rule I have for dealing with people with different backgrounds is to listen more than you talk. It's really impossible to help coach somebody if you don't understand them, and you can't understand somebody without asking them questions and really letting them talk about what matters to them. So that's the number one piece of advice I would give to people trying to understand people from different backgrounds. Now, there's a generational thing that you mentioned right there. And there is an old cliche that says that young people are more liberal and older people are more conservative, but I don't think that's necessarily 100% true. Maybe if we're talking about in generalities, maybe, but it's always the case that young people want to blaze their own path and older people kind of want to maintain the status quo. And understanding what it is like to be part of the other group, I feel like is really important in helping understand the other and to understand people with different perspectives and backgrounds.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, is rather than teaching all the same thing, it's more of bridging that divide and bridging how people view each other, right?
Yes.
I think this, with talking about the generational difference, we can talk a little bit about family influence on personal development. I know that in families, but specifically Asian families, parents often take a big part in deciding their child's futures. So my question for you is, in Asian families, how can both parents and children take a part in developing their futures?
Sorry, excuse the motorcycle noise. It is San Francisco after all. But how parents and children can take an active part, because after all, it is both sides' responsibility. I'm going to start with children first. So I think the number one thing that children should keep in mind is that life has just started. Life is very long. And I think that it's important for young people to know not only that, they can pursue whatever they want, but also to take some risks. I think that, especially in a lot of Asian cultures and in Asian families, there's a tendency to be risk averse. And I think that's doing a big disservice to young people. I think that parents should encourage their children to do whatever they want, with the guidance that they've with the guidance that they have from accumulating so many years of experience, they can help avoid some of the common pitfalls. But I think that what parents can do is to offer emotional support to their children and ultimately to encourage whatever they want to do.
Exactly. I think that is, it's a confusing time to be a teenager and have to, deciding a college major sort of feels like deciding what your future is going to be, right? So it can be often very stressful to decide what that is you want for yourself. And I think a lot of parents just help their children decide because they know that certain fields have a much larger security net than others. When that it's hard to take into account, well, how is my child, how am I going to go into this major and be satisfied with it, be self-fulfilled by it, when I know I'm interested in something else?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really important point because for a lot of the students that I coach, the students are interested in subjects such as history or English or some other humanities that oftentimes the parents take some convincing in order to really understand, first of all, what their children are interested in, and two, what are the possible career prospects. For me, it's always an ongoing journey in order to try to convince these parents, that their children's passion is something that they should carry on for life. It's not just a passing fancy. So I think that parents should do their best to be a little bit more open-minded, and children should respect the experience of their parents a little bit more. After all, 30, 40, 50 years of experience doesn't count for nothing, right?
Mhm. Exactly. I mean, again, it's sort of about bridging the divide, right? Like oftentimes parents want to be heard. They want to know, hey, I have experience with this. I know sometimes I know what is best for you, and you need to understand that. Whereas the child is, hey, it's a new world, and I'm exploring what I'm interested in myself, and you need to see my side, right? So really it's about communicating that and trying to find some sort of compromise that makes both parties feel really satisfied with the decisions. So you have a lot of experience with, again, like deciding what you want for yourself and kind of creating your own career. So how did you pursue your interests and talents, and how do you suggest other young people should decide their futures and pursue their passions?
So it's really interesting for my story, because I've kind of always known what my passions were, but there have always been voices telling me, this is not right, that's not right, this is what you should do. And in the end, it's just me listening to myself. At a certain point, the feeling within myself that, okay, this is not right, and I need to get to doing what I do best, really just kind of took over. So for me, it was really about gathering confidence in my own beliefs, in my own conviction, and just running with it.
Right. And so you suggest that for other young people, they should kind of do the same, is if they really know what they want to try out, even if they don't know that's what they want permanently, they should go out and do it and take risks at an early age.
Yes, what I would say is say yes more than you say no.
Mhm. That's a really good point. Let's talk about your experience in Jeopardy. I think a lot of people will be really fascinated by this story, how you competed on Jeopardy and how it taught you a couple life lessons. Would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I would like to know, who here is familiar with Jeopardy and who isn't, because I know that a lot of our audience is international.
Right. So please in the chat, let us know um, if you know what Jeopardy is, how it works, if you watch Jeopardy. Yeah, feel free to type that in the chat.
At least I think it wouldn't hurt to just give a really brief overview of what Jeopardy is. So Jeopardy is an American game show, and more so than any other game show, I think it's really embedded itself into the American psyche. I don't know if really a real cool fun fact about Jeopardy that I always like to throw out is that Jeopardy is the most watched TV broadcast aside from Sunday Night Football. So that really goes to show how popular it is in the United States. And what Jeopardy is, it's basically it's like a question and answer quiz show. So host asks the questions, contestants get to ring in, and if they get it right, they get money. If they get it wrong, they lose money. Now, the really interesting thing about Jeopardy is that it taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. And another part of Jeopardy that would be really important to mention here is that there are 3 special questions embedded in the game. And these questions can be accessed at any time at random. You don't know which 3 questions they are, but they're called daily doubles. And why they're special is because if you click on that question, then the host presents you with a choice. You can bet as little or as much money as you want on that question.
Right.
The only thing you know about it is the subject, but the question could be anything. And if you feel confident in the question, you can bet all of your money. And if you don't feel confident in the question, you can bet nothing. So I'm on there on stage, and pretty early on, I hit a daily double. And Alex Trebek, the host at the time, asked me, well, what's it going to be? And being the risk taker that I am, I said, let's make it a true daily double. Means I want to bet everything. So, Alex reads the question. I get it wrong, so I lose everything. No big deal. Still pretty early on in the game. About halfway through the game, I hit the second daily double, and Alex asked me the same thing. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it again. So I bet everything, and I promptly lose all again. So by this time, I was getting a little bit desperate since the other contestants were pulling away, because whoever has the most money at the end wins the game and gets to move on while the other two are eliminated. Now, I was still getting questions, and as luck would have it, I hit the third daily double, and Alex asked me for the third and final time, what do you want to do with it? Now, for the first two daily doubles, I lost everything. I was back to square one, didn't have any money,
Right.
but here was a chance to put the game away once and for all. So I went for it again. I got it, and that was enough to put the game completely out of reach for the other two contestants since it was so late in the game. Now, what did that tell me? Well, it taught me two really important things. The first thing was that take risks early on in your career, because I took risks 2 times in those daily doubles. And even though my score, my winnings went all the way down to zero, all the way from thousands of dollars, all the way back to zero, it ultimately didn't matter in the end. And number two, you only have to win once. You only have to win once, win big, but that's enough to basically put you out of reach, make you the winner of the game. So those two principles have really guided not only, my competition personality, but they've also influenced my overall career direction. So that's why I would say I'm a little bit more open to taking risks, because I know that I'm still pretty early on in my career, and to not take risks is the riskiest thing of all.
Mhm. Right, exactly. I think, we've already established this. You are a risk taker. You make these big moves in your life to decide what you really want. And this Jeopardy story is just another big element of that. Even though you failed twice in the daily double, you still went for it the third time because you had that confidence in yourself that you could succeed. And that's really the confidence that other people need is, even if it's scary, even if you think you might lose something, just going there and seeking that is what's really going to make you ultimately win and fulfill yourself.
Exactly. And, as you were saying that, I just thought of a third lesson that I took away from that, which is even if you fail twice, third time's the charm. Even if you failed before, as long as you have the confidence to take that shot, you should still take risks.
Exactly. Hey, and even if you fail a third time, maybe the fourth time's the charm. You just have to keep trying.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we know that you basically gravitated toward your own interests and passions. And let's talk about how have your interests and passions inspired you to be more politically involved?
Yeah. So I think history and politics go hand in hand. I think that, politics and history, anybody who's interested in history is going to have some interest in politics. After all, like, political history is one of the most influential reasons why we are here where we are today. So I've always been interested in politics, and more importantly, I've always been interested in bettering the lives of people in our community. I've always been community oriented, civically oriented, and I've never been that type of person to say it's none of my business. And I've never been that type of person to say we can't do it, there's nothing to be done. So after all these experiences I've seen, especially here in San Francisco, I feel like it's my duty as a citizen in order to do my best in order to help this community, this city, go into the future as best as we can. I think that the citizens of the city deserve better. I think that we have some issues that if we united as a community and tackle them head on, we could really make some progress in the quality of life here.
Exactly. I think it's really important to be involved with your community and to basically keep yourself updated with what's going on around you, right? And again, this goes back to the emphasis on history, is knowing the history of your city, knowing the history of your culture. How is that being changed every day? what is your current status in your city? It's all these little questions that really add up to a bigger picture. So in regards to being more politically involved, it's not necessarily that, hey, you have to, always be on the forefront of, politics, but just keeping yourself updated with what's happening and being able to talk to other people about it, right? These are simple connections that in the end game make your community more politically involved and inspire change.
Exactly. The ancient Greeks were the ones who invented democracy. And in my opinion, they had social skills and awareness that I feel like we could sort of learn from. I feel like if you read some of the writings by some of the Greek historians or the Greek politicians, like Pericles, you will find that civic involvement is the best way to get people involved in the community. It's the best way to get input from all members of society, which I think is sorely needed right now.
I think that's another aspect of, deciding what you want for your future and learning a little bit more about history, prioritizing it a little bit more because, a lot of people think, well, hey, if I go into this tech job, I'm going to make a lot of money and my future is basically secure, right? But when you look at the bigger picture, how you can inspire change in your community beyond just what you do for a living is having that knowledge and history and putting yourself out there more can really inspire greater change beyond yourself.
Correct. Feel like people who have studied history a lot have a better sense for where they fit into the bigger picture. We are all pieces of a whole here, and all of us did not get here by random chance. We all had ancestors, and they all have stories, and we will have descendants, and humanity will continue. So kind of seeing the bigger picture there is really beneficial for anything, really.
Exactly. It's all about the bigger picture and how broadening your horizons can help you and help those around you.
Right.
So we brushed a little bit upon this about just your community surroundings. Let's talk a little bit about San Francisco, where we both have our personal experiences with that. San Francisco has faced its sets of challenges. How have the city's past and present situations motivated you to act?
So let's first talk about San Francisco's past. So San Francisco, of course, not only being a very important city in the history of the United States, in the development of California and the West Coast, I think for our audience, San Francisco is the epicenter of Chinese culture and community in the United States. After all, if you look at the Chinese name of what San Francisco is, 旧金山, that means Old Gold Mountain, and that reflects the experience that the earliest Chinese immigrants had when they came here looking for a better life. So I think Chinese people have San Francisco in a special place in our hearts. It really is a city where we are integral to the history of it. There is no San Francisco's history, and there is no Californian history without the contributions of Chinese immigrants. Now, talking a little bit about the current situation of San Francisco. So I would say that the biggest problem our city faces today is crime. And this crime is deterring people from moving here. It's pushing current residents out. It is deterring companies from setting up shop here. It's deterring major tech conferences from being here, which is a massive moneymaker for the city. Right. And ultimately, it is it gives the perception that San Francisco is not a desirable place to live, which is awful because it's so beautiful here. We've got so much culture, and it is one of the richest and wealthiest cities in the entire world, which is why it's such a shame that the crime problem is so pervasive and so bad here. So combined with the glorious past and, the current situation, and the fact that, I really do love San Francisco. I was born and raised in near San Jose, but, San Francisco has always been the city for me. So that really motivated me to do something about it. That really motivated me to take some action instead of either complaining or moving out.
Exactly. I think San Francisco, for Northern Californians, it is the epicenter of culture, of economic development, of profit, of so many things, right? And to see the city kind of lose its sort of spark over the past, 2 years, maybe longer than that, is pretty disappointing for a lot of people. I mean, it's such a wealthy city too. And to see it surrounded by homelessness and crime it's very saddening, right?
Definitely.
And for those in the audience who are from this area, you may relate. I think almost every single person, tourist or resident of San Francisco, has dealt with one or two uncomfortable situations in San Francisco, especially recently. And that should not be the case, right? If we are so progressive, if we are so much on the forefront of the future, how is it that sometimes we feel so held back? So just having this situation so near us is definitely a motivator to be more politically inspired, to be more involved with societal change. So let's talk a little bit more about your aspirations for the future, both personally and for society at large.
Yeah, absolutely. So, personally, I've always been somebody who wanted a stable personal life. And I would say that I am somebody who doesn't have too much drama in his personal life. I've got a small circle of friends. I've got a great family. So personally, just to continue doing that. But career-wise, I would love to help represent the city in Congress. I would love to help break the stranglehold of what I feel like are regressive policies that are really holding us back. I think that it is time for change. I think that San Franciscans are sick of the status quo. San Francisco's politics are notoriously corrupt and they're dominated by only a few voices. And I feel like the silent majority of the city should have their say in how they want the city to be run.
Yes, exactly. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but I feel like the reason why there's such a silent majority, first of all, because there is, people in power who spread their voice, but also because people are growing more and more distanced from the political circumstances. Even though they see problems that are going on in their community, there's less of a motivation to speak up about it or to make change about it because they feel that there's no hope, right? And I feel like that's also why we need more young voices to make that impact, to really speak up and act on that, because all in all, we can't just deal with what's going on right now. We have to make that active change.
Yes, absolutely. And as a general note, I think that young people's participation in politics, not only as voters or as bystanders, is really important. After all, it is young people that are going to inherit the world. And if you look at our current politicians, putting it one way, they're geriatric. So I think it is the people whose futures are at stake here who should be the ones at the forefront of the charge to change things.
Exactly. Also, for the audience, feel free to start asking questions in the chat, because we have brushed upon a lot of the topics that we were to talk about today. And we're moving on now to our closing question, is if our audience should remember one message from our conversation, what would you want it to be?
Elise, that is a tough one, not because I can't think of a message, but narrowing it down to a single one is going to be kind of tough. Now, I think that, for every single background, for every single demographic, there's a different lesson at play here. But I will leave the audience with two things. So the first one is to say yes more than you say no. I've said this before, but another piece of advice that I would give everybody is to put yourself in opportunity's way. What that means is to put yourself out there, to put yourself where opportunity can happen to you is going to be one of the best decisions that you make. Everybody gets lucky, but some people get luckier than others because they put themselves out there for luck to catch them.
Right. I think that is a great message to have. You really need to put yourself out there to know what you want in this life and to help others know what they want in their lives, right? Thinking about it, you only have one life. So think about what you did in your life and what you want to remember. That's so important, right? And you said you want a stable personal life, which I understand, what that meaning is, but at the same time, I think you've lived, quite the unstable personal development, future career lifestyle. That is so interesting to me is, if you're going for what you want, you don't necessarily have to have an unstable lifestyle, but you definitely need to take risks and you need to make them early on. And you need to make mistakes early on in order to know what you want and in order to succeed.
Yes,
Exactly. So we have some questions from the chat. Thank you, Wei Zhang for sending your questions. The first question is, how far are you willing to go to service the community?
Hey, Wei, do you mind if you unmute yourself and ask the question with a little bit more context?
Yes, and Bruce, I really enjoy your conversation. It is highly intelligent and mature. I have a question, it's halfly a joke.
Okay.
How many miles you're willing to go to serve the community?
Well, speaking as a former cross-country runner, I've ran plenty of miles, so I wouldn't say like how many miles is too much.
Suppose it require you to drive to say 2 or 3 hours to certain place. Were you willing to go that far?
So I can actually answer this with a personal anecdote. So when I was in high school, I interned in the office of Fiona Ma. For those of you who might not be familiar with Fiona Ma, she's currently California State Treasurer, but at the time she was the California State Assemblywoman for San Francisco's district. So my office was at San Francisco City Hall, but I lived with my parents near San Jose, and it is just a grind of a commute to get there. Have to drive to the Caltrain station, and then you have to take the Caltrain all the way up to San Francisco. And the Caltrain station in San Francisco actually is nowhere close to where City Hall is. And at that time, they didn't actually have the central subway connecting Caltrain and downtown. So I would have to walk 1.5 miles from the Caltrain station through the Tenderloin, which is one of the sketchier districts in San Francisco with homeless and all sorts of panhandlers and other dangerous elements in order to get to my job every morning. This entire commute would take about, I want to say 2 hours one way. So I would spend 4 hours a day commuting. So to answer your question, yes, I would absolutely be willing to do that.
Thank you.
It's so impressive to find someone so inspired to help out, especially in the community, to have that internship and know that it's going to be challenging to even get there every day, but still have that passion and to inspire yourself enough to keep going. And I guess there is no number as to how far you're willing to go service the community. It's really what opportunities present themselves, how you go seek those opportunities for yourself. And at the end of the day, what change you make.
Correct.
Everyone else, feel free to ask other questions in the chat. I think for everyone who was coming in through the chat, they may have missed your introduction. So maybe Bruce, if you want to share again a little bit about your college major and how you moved on from that and where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of you that are joining us a little bit later, I'm Bruce. I'm currently considering running for Congress to represent California, to represent California's 11th district, which is San Francisco. I majored in computer science at UC Berkeley. And then I spent a few years in recruitment, being a business owner and executive search before making this current career transition.
So for everyone just hearing that, you can tell Bruce has made a lot of risks in his life. We keep emphasizing. He's made a lot of change, and it's something that we really want to pass on to our current generation, our younger generations, is taking those risks early on, getting our voices out there, especially for the Asian community, really looking for ways to branch out in the future beyond, beyond technical capability, looking more to leadership positions and different passions.
It's just really interesting. Sorry, I joined a bit later because from my knowledge of politics, it's really like, like if you're in a circle or not outside circle, it's very complicated, it seems. But I commend your courage, to actually, want to do that. Pretty commendable. So I think maybe like you can learn from Obama, I mean, what I mean is do you have to maybe find your niche or find your voice or find your branding, with from marketing term, what's your kind of branding term or branding thing that make you different or something? I don't know, politics, it's not my forte at all, but I found just really, refreshing idea, you just jump from the technical to politics. What's your kind of strengths that make you special? I guess that's what I'm asking, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm following my own question.
我能闻到，你放那边，放那边，我正好给它用上去了。这不就是那个你自己看看，拿到外面拿到。
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your question, so first of all, I want to clear up one misconception. And that misconception is that politicians have to follow a very narrow path in order to become politicians. In fact, I would say that part of our problem today is that people think that the only people who can be politicians are career politicians, which is kind of a tautology in itself. But I think that anybody who, has a deep-seated desire to change their community and has that sort of deep-seated desire to change their community, as well as a sort of mission statement, can and should run for politics, for representing their community, whether that be mayor, whether that be for Congress, or anything in between. Now, to kind of more directly address your question about what inspired me to run and what sort of branding I am. Look, I didn't choose this because I wanted any sort of personal gain. It was all born from my experiences, from my observations of daily life, and my desire to change. Because when I look around, when I attend city hall, city council meetings, seems like nobody is interested in addressing this problem, especially from the current leadership. And what my branding is going to be, it's going to be addressing what I think is the most pressing of concerns in San Francisco right now, which is that of crime, because I think that feeling safe is the most fundamental of all, all requirements to live in the city, right? It can be beautiful, it can be rich, it can have a lot of opportunities, but if it isn't safe, then that kind of renders all of that moot. So I wanted to address that in particular. Of course, I have opinions about a lot of different things, but my branding would very much focus on the safety issue and really, helping the citizens of San Francisco feel safe to walk around the city, to go about their business, and so on.
Oh, that's great. I can hear the passion in your voice. I'm not questioning anything. I'm just saying you might, try to sit down, have a strategy or even treat it like a marketing thing or whatever, because when I immediately thought of, the president of Ukraine, who was an actor before, like just suddenly jump into the political ring without any, political experience or cloud before. I'm just saying you can probably learn from history, learn from other people. It's a huge. I don't envy to be in your shoes. Obviously, I think you got to find something. Make your strategy stand out or something. It's not easy, but I commend your passion. I can hear that in your voice. That's great. So that's all. That's all I'm saying. So.
Yeah, of course. And not only Zelensky, Arnold Schwarzenegger was an actor. Ronald Reagan was an actor. I mean, if you look at Trump, he wasn't anywhere near politics before deciding to run. So there's a lot of examples of people who didn't have any experience in politics, but decided to throw their hat in the ring and end up being very successful.
Yeah, again, I think there's this importance that, no matter what background you come from, you should be able to feel like you can run for politics and be a voice in this community, because oftentimes there is that barrier that people say is, if you're not in that position beforehand, then why even bother, right? But I think that is not the perception that we should be having. It should be, well, can I inspire change? Do I know what I'm talking about? And do I really know what is right for the city, what I think is right for the city? And just by having that passion enough, you should definitely take the risk, go run for Congress, go be a part of the political world, the political dynamic.
Exactly.
See, does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat.
By the way, it doesn't have to be all profound. It can be, very simple questions. It's really a free forum right now.
Okay, I have another one. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm just kind of jumping in here. I think I remember there's another. I think it's an Indian guy who is also a tech background, was trying to running for office. Oh, maybe that was for the state. Yeah, maybe you can learn from what he. See, my question is this: I'm just questioning how do you create enough, political cloud or even. I always just think about it's like a marketing cloud, so people will trust you instead of versus somebody in Cuban or already in that circle. I still think this is a circle thing. It's like you even create relationship and then people can trust you. And then they trust what you're saying and they can really. But how do you create that for millions of people? Like San Francisco, whatever. You can create that cloud. I still think it's really hard for you as a newcomer, right? I don't know, like.
I understand where you're coming from. By the way, do you mind me asking where you live right now and what your job is?
Oh, I live in San Diego, actually. Yeah. My job is actually I'm in between. I'm kind of doing some investment at home, but I was trained as an engineer. But I how do I say, I'm a techie. My idol is Elon Musk. So but my interests span everything. My mind can go everywhere. But I think my main strength is still technical. But I see all this change, that need to be done because politics is very important, right? But in my circle, like on WeChat, people always say, hey, politics is very hard to deal with. It creates emotions, right? So you don't talk about politics in Chinese circle very much because you start a fight, like not physical fight, but a lot of they say it's hard to deal with. But personally, I don't even want to do that because I feel it's not my strength. I don't think it's really my strength dealing with people. So that's why I stay with the technical. But I admire people going into politics, because I feel politics is more, create more power. You create more changes by, not just focusing on your own little cubicle stuff, right? So that's the main thing. So I volunteer actually in Sierra Club and all that. I learned a bit about politics, but still I feel, in order to create change, you really have to really step out of your, comfort zone and do something about it. But in order to do that, you have to create a crowd, like your own circle in a way. I don't know. I mean, if I want to do that, I probably have to go study what Zelensky create his path to power. It's very complicated, I think. So, but I'm curious. I think I'm just really curious. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for sharing your background. And by the way, San Diego is a lovely city. My girlfriend's from there. So I visit there actually maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So what you said is that, I'm kind of running as an outsider, and you're curious as to, what sort of clout I have in order to enter this field. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm running as an outsider, and I'm running outside of my comfort zone. But if there's anything that, my career and my choices have shown so far, it's that taking risks, being outside of your comfort zone is really the only way to grow. And I think in this particular case, the insiders have not done enough. I feel like they have put their own interests at heart instead of that of the community. So I feel like by running as an outsider, in fact, that might bring a breath of fresh air into what the establishment is right now. And, with everything, there is a risk. And with everything, there's nothing guaranteed. But I think the important thing here is the willingness to step up and fight.
Yes, I think
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, just one last thing. I think I commend your courage. I think it's great. I'm just saying, maybe use your technical background, use your strengths, as well, for your courses. But anyway, bottom line is I commend your courage. That's great. More people should do that. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily. I see that May's raised her hand.
I'm May. I'm a San Francisco resident, so really getting out of your zone to coming to vote, to running for the political positions. I have 2 questions. One is, what are the resources? What do you want help from the audience here today? Is there anything you want to help from? What we can support you in whatever way we can? Is there any website or any kind of the checklist that you would like the audience to help you out with? I mean, we can't do everything, but if we can try as much as we can, things I think you're really inspiring from what I heard today. That's the first question. The second question, I did know that I looked at your resume. It seems like you are a CS major from Berkeley. Is there some sort of compromise? Sounds like you have early on love into the history, very early on, politician early on. Is that sort of some compromise between you and the family in determining when you apply for the college major, or is just the kind of computer science is one of your passion and political science is another part of your passion? So you're trying to combine the both of the best of the both.
Yeah, so happy to address both of your questions. First of all, May, just wondering what neighborhood of San Francisco do you live in?
Parkside.
Parkside, okay, really nice neighborhood. Unfortunately, I have heard of some crime seeping out of downtown into the outer neighborhoods as well. So I think that you're aware of the problems that are plaguing San Francisco as well.
Yes, I totally agree. I think with the downtown San Francisco is changed so dramatically over the past couple of years. It just kind of left so many people doesn't want it to visit San Francisco anymore, doesn't want it to be in San Francisco anymore, really hurt the city by a lot. Yeah.
Yes. So to answer your 2 questions, for the first question, I don't have a website right now. And right now I'm trying to be a little bit more grassroots. This isn't there's not some big political machine supporting me right now. It really is just me putting myself out there and hoping that I have enough support from you guys in order to, maybe launch a campaign that can really stand up to the political juggernauts that are running this city. So I would say stay tuned. Hopefully we can get something up and running in the next couple of months. But right now, really just trying to drum up support. And if there's anything that you guys can do for me, I think that the best thing you guys can do for me is to just remember my name, add me on LinkedIn or on WeChat or whatever other social media platforms. And I assure you, in a couple of months, we're going to have something a little bit more planned out, a little bit more formal. But right now, really just trying to get my views out there. And as for the second question, no, it wasn't a compromise. It was more me. So look, I'm going to be fully frank with you guys, and I'm not going to sugarcoat things. So I applied to Cal as a history major. I applied there as a history major, but all undergrads enter as undeclared. And my parents, both of them being engineers, they said that the best way for me to have a guaranteed stable income in the future was to study computer science. And after all, that was what all my friends were doing anyways. So I did the computer science major at Cal.
All right, great. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, look for and stay tuned for your new news. Yeah.
We got a question from JK. So let me just read it out loud for everybody. As an Asian American candidate, have you thought about plans to mobilize and unite as wide and diverse as possible a supporter base? So that's a really interesting question because the way I would put it is, look, I'm trying to represent all the people of San Francisco. If I were to say I'm only going to represent the Asian population, that would be doing a disservice to the other 60% of San Francisco. About 40% of San Francisco is Asian. So I'm not trying to, pick sides here. I'm not trying to be like, okay, so I'm going to improve the Asian community at the expense of other communities. However, I do want to say that I am representing the Asian community's interests. And I want to, because I feel like the Asian community in San Francisco, in particular, does not have the political power it deserves. Again, 40% of San Francisco is Asian, yet it feels like Asian voices are silenced. It feels like our calls for more safety, which is the foremost concern of the Asian community, have fallen on deaf ears. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, there's been a lot of hate crimes, specifically toward Asians. Those are issues that I would be sure to prioritize in serving the Asian community.
Yeah, that's great. I think for, a lot of Asian American political candidates, oftentimes for the general public, they think, okay, well, this person is only serving one community, when that is totally wrong. Asian Americans running as candidates, they are serving the entire community, no matter what people may perceive that to be. It's just that as an Asian American, it is so prevalent what aspects of our community are being impacted, and you need to start from somewhere to be inspired to make that change.
Well put, Elise.
Thank you. Anyone else, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I have a couple of small questions. First one is, how do you balance work and life?
I didn't know this would be a job interview, Elise. But how do I balance work and life? So, that's a question that I think that everybody should be considering. I feel like, especially in today's society, too often we put aside life in favor of work because that's what we're told. And, I've seen a lot of different corporate cultures, and I can say that neglecting life in favor of work is ultimately unsustainable. Of course, you want to further your career as much as you possibly can, but how can you do that when it comes at the expense of life, right? Of family. So from my years in executive search, this is something that a lot of executives, people who have made it to the C-suite, as well as people who are in the VP and heads of department rank have told me. Put life first, put your family first, and the work will naturally follow. If your family life is good, if your your life with your friends and you're generally happy, it's going to be reflected in your work. The people who put work first at the expense of everything else ultimately end up burning out, and a lot of them don't make it into the the C-suite ranks where I'm sure a lot of us want to end up in.
Right. So it's just a matter of, living a good personal life. Living that good personal life will really show what kind of interpersonal connections you're making outside of the workforce and how that's going into play with your coworkers.
Correct. And I think that most work that people do, you could really prioritize some things over the others. We all, I know this is such a cliche and I really hate saying this, but we all have 24 hours in the day. So it's really important to focus on what's most important rather than say, focusing on everything and letting some of the things that are important to you fall to the wayside.
Right. Again, that goes back to knowing what your passions are and what you want in life, and, taking those risks, taking those big moves in your life.
Yes.
For a more carefree question, Bruce, what do you do for leisure?
Oh, what do I do for leisure? I feel like I do a lot in my free time. I feel like it's quite eclectic. So definitely something I love doing is I love staying fit. So I love sports, both participating in them and watching. So I do love working out, playing tennis, but I also love watching sports. We're really blessed to have the Warriors and the 49ers here in San Francisco.
Right.
And I hope the 49ers make it all the way to the Super Bowl this year and win it. As for my other interests, I really do enjoy some artistic interests as well. I've played the violin since I was age 7. And even though I'm not too much of a visual artist, like I'm not much of a painter or a sculptor, definitely love to admire all the public art that is in San Francisco. Feels like every day I'm discovering something new.
So you can see even through your leisurely activities, you're very strong with the community. You're looking at all the sports teams, looking at all the art museums and music events. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
Bruce, exactly. Bruce, you're so multi-talented with such diverse interests and skills. How would you suggest to help students with these aspects of their life, with their interests, and not just in social life?
Sorry, Elise, could you rephrase that question a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. You have such a diverse array of interests, and you're very passionate about a lot of different things. How do you suggest students basically broaden their horizons with this and find things that they're interested in?
Well, I'll be fully honest. I kind of fell into many of my interests through ways I didn't really expect. I would say that definitely a lot of these interests were influenced by friend groups, by having friends who are interested in that and having the friendship being built around a mutually shared interest. That is definitely one way. And another way is actually through me studying history. And that's really where a lot of my interest in, say, the arts comes from, because after all, arts history is history. Music history is history. And studying all these different painters and studying all these different artistic movements have really opened my eyes to what art was, is, and can be. So I'm not really sure as to what answer I should give here, because there's no one size fit all answer. But I would say try different things, make different friends, And sooner or later, there's going to be something that you're really interested in.
Yeah. I think finding a lot of these interests is really playing into what kind of lifestyle you lead, right? Is you really, you kind of seek out those opportunities for yourself and you decide what you want for yourself. And by doing that, you can have a diverse array of interests, right? Because you are a curious person and you see what's interesting to you. And from then on, you develop these passions. I think that is the basic message we can give to the younger generation is, you know, even if you don't think you'll be interested in it, or if you don't even know what it may be, try it out, go into it, see what it has in play for you. So let's go back a little bit more to the political aspects and in general, just what opportunities may be available for the people here. What opportunities and changes have you seen in our second generation as a Chinese American?
Well, for starters, I think that the second generation is a lot more in tune politically with what's going on. I feel like, you know, speaking in generalizations, the first generation came here in order to, you know, work, start a family, but the second generation is really here to, you know, really be integrated into society and to make a difference. So I think that the second generation is just more politically involved in general. What I would say, you know, to give them advice would be to just stay informed. You know, look at things from different sources, look at things from different perspectives, really try to get an idea for what's going on, because the mainstream media is not going to tell the whole story. It's kind of up to you to do some sleuthing work, to do some detective work in order to figure out what's really going on. And another really great thing that you can use is your own eyes and your own ears, because your own experiences are going to inform what your opinions are going to be, what your experiences are going to inform what changes you think should be made. So I would say that, you know, trust your own eyes, trust your own ears, be aware of what's going on. Don't isolate yourself.
Right. Again, a matter of putting yourself out there and really speaking your mind, just staying involved with the current situation.
Yes, exactly. And to kind of add on to that, when I was a high schooler, and actually as a college student as well, I stayed politically involved, not only in terms of, you know, being aware of what was happening, but actually affecting change. I'm not sure if all of you remember or know what this is, but there was a bill that was introduced back in 2014 called SCA 5, Senate Constitutional Amendment 5, that would allow for racially discriminatory admissions in California universities. And I was part of the effort going door to door collecting signatures to oppose it, and it ultimately was defeated because voters like you and me put pressure on their representative to not pass this bill. And later on, when Prop 16 threatened to do the same thing, I did the same thing as well. Participated in marches, you know, gave speeches, handed out bumper stickers, and ultimately California voters rejected that amendment as well. So we always have to keep doing this. We always have to fight for what we believe in order for our voices to be heard.
Exactly. And I think that all starts with being informed, which is why that door-to-door work you're doing as a high schooler is so important, because oftentimes, you know, people may not know about the current circumstances or may not go out of their way to instill that change. So by having younger people going door to door and trying to instill that change is very important.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. If you have any more questions, viewers from the chat, please feel free to speak up, raise your hand, or type it out. Let's talk a little bit about your, since we have quite a few parents here and students, let's talk about your parents. So how have your parents influenced where you are today? What do your parents think about your career change, and do they support it?
So, first of all, I don't know if my parents are watching this or not. So if they are, hello. um, so, look, not going to sugarcoat things. At first, they were not supportive of the career change, but I think ultimately they came around and have changed their mind after seeing, some of the successes that I've had and seeing that ultimately I'm happier. So, addressing this to all the parents here with us today, I feel like ultimately your kids are going to be their own person, and it's, as much as maybe you would like for them to follow in your own footsteps, it's going to be really hard for you to convince them if they really have their mindset. So I think the best thing that you can do is to really provide that emotional support, because as kids, the thing that we all want and seek is parental approval, for you guys to be proud of us. So I think that's the most valuable thing that parents can offer.
I think oftentimes parents are pretty concerned with where their children's lives are going to go, and that's totally fair, right? And from a young age, there's always what you should be doing, what paths you should be taking, who you should be friends with. There's always some kind of connection from the parents to the child of what decisions they should be making, and that's why it's so much more important to see that when your child has such a strong passion in something, that they're willing to make those decisions for themselves. That is a courageous decision. That is not an act of rebellion, which may be seen that way. So the best thing you can do is, help guide them in that direction and show them what your opinions are, but still demonstrate your support.
Yeah, I think that you put it really well.
Thank you. Let's see. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Bruce, I think it would be a great time to reemphasize what message we would like the audience to take away from this today.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one more question. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you, yeah.
Go ahead.
So basically, it's about racial harmony. How do you see? It's a bit personal. Also, I think I'm conflicted because race, and naturally, our human race, we like to, lean towards people who look like us. Similar, like even our meeting, we're all like Asian here. So I'm trying to see that harmony because I find it hard, but the other side, the California especially, we're educated, everybody is equal in this country, everybody come from other places, but we're all here, seeking a good life, right? But I just find very hard in a way that you see all the hate crime. I think like, why do they hate Asian? I think they might be jealous of the treatment, or whatever reason. Then Trump is adding to the fire, right? By being so, obnoxious in that sense. But what I'm getting at, I realized that I delved into it a bit more. I read this race thing as I've been around a long time. Like even Reagan, said something and was racist also, or whatever. So I found, it's a human thing more like. So my stand right now, I think what I have learned and grasped from what my environment, my information source, is maybe they take a stand as an international citizen, which in fact in China, I think they did a study of 80% Chinese citizens actually think themselves as an international citizen. So they don't want to, just box them in as Chinese, probably not as what other outside people think as it is. So maybe I kind of leaning towards that, so thinking myself more like international citizen. So that's why, like I said earlier, I lean towards, like climate change and all that, where it's easier to, unite everybody because, climate change is concern everyone in the globe. But I found, in US, it's very hard to do that because, like even San Diego, they had an incident, just whatever, like I think it was a Coronado director of something like this couple was being really racist. Like, by chance, somebody else, they were, making racial slur. And by chance, the victim side was film them, and then they lost their job. but that's a reflective of, there's a lot of hidden racism behind the door. Even they might show, harmony in the front, but behind the door, you don't know what they really think. So what's your take on that, basically? Sorry for my long winding rant about, getting the question there. Sorry.
So, Lily, by the way, I heard about the Coronado incident as well. And I want to say that racism is wrong. I think we can all agree on that. And I think that no race should disrespect another race, much less commit hate crimes. So I think that we can all agree that, hate crimes crime is a bad thing. Hate crime is an even worse thing. And I think that, us as Asian Americans, we have been on the receiving end of these hate crimes for far too long. My take on what you said as being an international citizen, absolutely, these are all issues that we care about. Climate change, nuclear disarmament, these are all issues that affect the human race as a whole. But I want to represent my constituency right now as best as I can. And I think, again, the biggest problem that faces our constituency right now is crime. So whether it's a hate crime, whether it's a crime of opportunity, I feel like that needs to stop.
Agreed. I think to emphasize that, oftentimes there are different subjects that people try to focus on in politics, but something that isn't often realized is that a lot of these issues are interconnected. For instance, climate change, the impacts of climate change have different effects on different populations in the city, right? Depending on what neighborhood you're living in, what community you're part of, you're going to be hit with those different impacts. And all in all, there should be a holistic view on all of these political issues because they're very much interconnected. I recently did research on the impacts of climate change on the different communities in San Francisco. And you can see that communities that have a higher ratio of minorities, of marginalized communities, are much more harmed than the communities that aren't. And that's a simple example as to how, focusing on climate change itself is also a race issue. Anyway, I got a little bit passionate there, but just saying, I think we all agree here, as Bruce said, that racism is a problem. Racism is not right. And I think in general, having people in those positions of power emphasizing that is a big influence on our future generation. Do we have any more questions from the chat? So far, I see we do not. So I want to go back to perhaps a final message for the audience here today. I'm going to change the question up a little bit. What message, Bruce, do you have for parents to support their kids' passion when it is not in line with their expectation?
Well, love your children, because ultimately they're going to live their life, whether you want to, or whether you want them to live that life or not. So, as long as they're doing something productive, as long as they are, wanting to contribute to society and to better themselves, let them. Support them, love them.
I think that is the most important characteristic. Studies show that if you have a good family life, you have a good life with your friends and your family, you're going to live a successful life, right? So, yeah, as you've said before. So just by loving those around you, making those connections, supporting each other, no matter what you end up doing, you will live a happy life.
Oops, I think we had a little open mic there.
Exactly. All right, well, I think that pretty much concludes our interview for today. Again, I want to give a warm thank you to the people who have allowed this discussion to happen. Thank you to AFI, Mighty Coach, and Dragon Eagle TV for jointly collaborating on this discussion.
Awesome, guys. Well, it was a pleasure meeting all of you guys. Definitely stay tuned, add me, and hopefully I will be seeing you guys very soon.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Elise, for a great conversation. So Bruce will bring you back in the future, to talk to the second generation, talk to general population. So you inspire young generation, you inspire all the parents, you inspire all the, citizens. Thank you so much. 好，谢谢大家积极参加今天的 conversation。大家也注意到了哈，只要一讲英文的 session， 好多人就觉得虽然我们都是在美国的华人，一讲英文的 session， 大家就没有说讲中文这么积极。Anyway， 我们也欢迎你们推荐更多的 speaker。Young career wise， 我们在这里帮助北美华人怎么样在各行各业发展。然后还没有加入 MyT Coach 群的，请加入群。Bruce and Elise, you guys could wonderful 1 hour and a half， 你们俩可以退席了，如果你没时间了的话，好吧，谢谢你们俩。So this is every day, fun fitness, be happy, be healthy。你们都听到了 ，Bruce 是一个很多 interest， 而且 sports 也很厉害的孩子，真的不叫孩子了哈，现在是 young professional。所以你要在职场上，在生活上 be happy, be healthy。欢迎加入我们每天的健身，我们有20多位diverse 的老师，然后欢迎加入我们每个周2的职场讲座。如果你还没有入职场群的，请加入我们职场群，好吗？然后你加入 MyT.coach， 我们也有很多的 coaches 帮助，不管是学生也好，还是职场上发展也好，是 executive 也好，怎么样get over your anxiety， 怎么样帮助你在沟通上，在领導力上各方面得以发展，好吗？ Bruce 的 last name 是 Low， 谢谢。然后我们也有COO 跟大家做 group coaching， 所以也欢迎大家参加。Charles 的话，他在multi-billion dollar company 做 VP 好多年，现在也是在做 COO， 他是手把手教大家你怎么样建立 network， 怎么样找到 mentors， 怎么样你 deal with different relationship， 怎么样 advance， 最重要的是怎么样 build your assertiveness， 你的自信。好，欢迎大家参加，这个在 MyT.coach 的平台上都有哈，然后我们也有很多 private coaching 来帮助大家怎么样 advance。欢迎大家参加我们有很多的 program， 包括语言的沟通包括女性领导力包括怎么样 life work balance 所以your help is here， 谢谢大家。然后我们还有其他的 program， MyT Coach can you just put the difference， 这是我们的 young coach， 他也有 special 的 coaching sessions， 他自己也是在生物医药方面的高管，也是博士毕业，但是读了 MBA， 也在哥伦比亚的 coaching training， 欢迎大家加入，我们有几十位 coaches 在这里帮助大家。OK， 谢谢大家 and good night， 谢谢积极问问题的朋友们，在这里支持 Bruce and Elise。Thank you all. Enjoy a great night.